How's it going,
Good.
Tom?
How are you, Riley?
I'm doing pretty good,
Well,
man.
you guys look good.
At least we got something going for ourselves.
Sweet. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today on Forging Brains podcast. Today we have a pretty special guest. This is a guy that is well respected, and as he should be, in the blacksmith world, the artist world, the horseshoeing world. Man, you can't meet too many makers that would see Tom's work and not be impressed right away. So, welcome, Tom, and thank you for joining us
Well,
today.
thank you. I'm honored to be on with two real good hands like you guys are. I was just telling him a few minutes ago how proud I am of you young guys that go after it, and you guys are go-getters.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much, especially coming from a guy of your caliber.
Oh, shucks. I just
And so, Tom, it'd be great to hear some of your background. And I don't even want to necessarily just hear your background of your horseshoeing. I would like to hear a little bit of your background of just growing up and how maybe you got this artistic way to you and maybe where it began.
well, I've been lucky my whole life. God's been good to me. He's lined me up with people. You know, I think people come into your life, and some of them are bad, and some of them are good, and you got to make a choice of which group to follow. And I
Mm-hmm.
back at my life, and I could see people that came into my life. I got your hammer here anyway because of. Uh, I think people come into your life, and I could look back at it, and I think most old timers can too, and say, you know, if I'd have followed that guy, I probably wouldn't have done nothing. But I made a choice to follow this, and I from as a little kid, I'm legally blind in my left eye.
Really?
Yeah, it's never correctable. So if I take my glasses off and everything pretty soon, if I shut this eye off, everything will pretty much go black. So
Uh-huh.
I have a different depth perception, I think, than other people. And I don't look at it probably the same way as people do because my depth perception is off. And it looks like Riley.
Okay.
Did Riley leave us?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, his internet must have,
you want
but he'll pop back in. Keep going.
uh anyway, when I was in school as a little boy, they would make fun of me because I had to wear a patch on this eye. They thought that would help my left eye get stronger. Well, they know now.
Yeah.
They know now if you don't do that soon enough, that it'll never get better. And I was walking through school pretty much with a patch on my eye, and it wasn't one of them cool pirate patches, patches that looked horrible. And I had a real good dad. He was from Oklahoma. My mom and dad are both from Oklahoma. And but he didn't like long hair. No offense, Gavin. He set us in a chair and cut our hair off. And
Okay.
so now you got to remember, I was about 50 miles south of Chicago going to school, being raised
Mm-hmm.
Okie. And so I got teased a lot because that's when the Beatles came in and the Monkees and all that. And we weren't allowed to listen to that stuff.
None of that music at all.
Well, no, we could listen to country music. We could listen to Hank Williams or something, Bob Wills.
Uh-huh.
But I got made fun of in school, and I'm not mad at my father for that because I think it did help make me what I am today. Maybe it's not good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. But I was made fun of quite a bit, and I had a really bad pigeon toes. I was pigeon toed as a kid, and they just
Really?
like a horse. They said, well, we'll build up the outside of his shoes, and it'll turn him out. So I wore these
Yep.
weird-looking shoes with a big leather cap on the toes. So I'm stumbling with a patch on one eye, a bald head, weird-looking shoes, and I got made fun of a lot. And I was really kind of within myself. I kind of so when in school
Became.
when they would let us draw pictures, or when they give
Mm-hmm.
free time, I would draw. And I used to look at those hot rod magazines. Years ago, there was a bunch of them hot rod magazines, and there was an artist,
Oh yeah.
a cartoonist that used to draw dragsters, and different things like that. But I was really good at that. I'd sit there and I'd draw a dragster, and I'd pull that patch off my good eye, and I'd draw the dragster. One of the cool kids walked by my desk one day, and I was little. I was always real little, and he was one of them. And then this is probably no more than fourth grade, maybe third, fourth grade.
Okay.
And he looks down and he goes, "Hey, look what the weird kid drew!" And he showed everybody, and they were in awe of it. The weird kid did something, so I could draw a picture for him, and I did. And all of a sudden I was cool because I could do.
Yeah.
So I pursued it, and I kept drawing, and I kept anything to do with art. I knew that I could do it, and I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't make me one of the cool kids, really. But they knew that I could do something, and I think today, deep down, I'm still trying to make people go, "Hey, look what the weird kid did." Look, and I think it's still in me. And you know what? Some people could have took that and felt sorry for themselves forever.
Yes.
But I found it as a way to do something, and not because I was
Fuel to your fire.
smart, not because I was smart, but it made me accepted that they
Yeah.
didn't beat me up no more, and they didn't make fun of me no more. So I that's how I became interested in art, and I think God gave me a little bit of talent in that area. A friend of mine in high school, he was an artist, a better artist than me, I think. Uh, his name's Frank Fosco, and if you look him up, he was one of the artists that created the Teenage Ninja Turtles in the
Hmm.
cartoon books. And he was
Yeah.
1 year older than me. And when I would go into art class in high school or junior high, I would always go over because we had these little cubicles where you could put your artwork, and the other artists could look at it. And I'd always go over and check out his work. And I thought, man, I got to draw like that. That guy draws better than anybody in here. Well, now we're friends on Facebook. We found each other again after 45, 50 years. And I
Cool.
found out that he helped create that. And he drew for a lot of comic books, and he's very good. But I've been attracted to people that are artistic because, it's the same interest. So you,
Mm-hmm.
but some artists, I'll tell you a quick story. You don't have to ask me a lot of questions because I could rule it.
That's
This is
fine.
perfect.
We
This is
love
great.
it.
we was Whenever I found out I couldn't shoe horses no more, and I really tried for 8 years. I worked with sciatic pain, and it got to where you're cheating a horse. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In
Yep.
other words, you're trying to do a good job, but your body says you just can't do it. So you'll do something that normally, if you're fit, you would say, no, I got to do that different. But when you're hurting real bad, you'll say, that's good enough. Well, that's when I quit because I did not want to cheat the horse. I didn't really care
That's cool.
the owners. You can't care, you got to care about that horse
Yep.
because that's your patient and you're trying to make that patient right. So whenever I got to the point where I couldn't do it no more and the doctors told me I better stop, I had an operation. They put a rod in my back and screws, titanium screws in a rod.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and they were going to do it on my other side. I only got it on one side.
This is for your like sciatica pain?
I had all them discs back there were just they were gone
Oh,
and
compressed.
sitting on the sciatic nerve.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they had to open all them up. It was a pretty rigorous. It was about an 8-hour surgery, and
Wow.
they were going to put rods on both sides, but when they got in there, they found my spine had twisted because my left side was where the sciatic pain was. And whenever I'd get under a horse on the left, the left hind, I'd have to twist my body to get away from the pain to work. So if you
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
years getting away from pain, pretty soon your body, just like a horse, if he stands with one foot with all the weight on it and the other foot gets all up in the air,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
the same thing. If you're doing that day in day out, your spine's going to adjust to the way you're doing things. So they couldn't fix the other side, but anyway, they did cut me though. I got my back, but anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? And Roy Bloom, a close friend of mine who I love dearly, he said, well, you got to work in your shop. You got to make things. And like so many
Mm-hmm.
people, you go, well, what am I going to make? And who's going to buy it? Well, and I think you guys are probably the same. Riley, I know you're the same. You build it and they will come, won't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
They will. They'll find you.
You cannot sit on your butt and expect people to go, hey, Tom. If
Yeah.
you have no business and you've got money enough to have a fire and a hammer and an anvil, go make something. Go,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and it'll come. But anyway, Roy says you got to get a power hammer, and I never had a power hammer in my life till 11 years ago, 10 years ago. Because
Nice.
Roy talked me into it. Roy spends my better than I do. But I got a hammer, and I didn't know how to run it, and I still don't know how to run it right because all I ever used was if I wanted to forge something heavy. I never had a striker around here. You just didn't have them. So I'd use a 4-pound hammer. And Roy says, "You quit that
Mm-hmm.
crap. You're an old guy. You gotta get a tool."
Mm-hmm.
But I really was. I'd use the same pair of tongs for everything and adjust them. But anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, I got to where I was making a bunch of stuff, just whatever was in my mind, and I'd see something in my head, and I'd try to build that and build this, and then I got enough stuff to go to an art show
Okay.
in Chicago, kind of a fancy one, and I don't fit in with them folks too good, but
I don't think much of any of us do.
we're on the same page. They probably don't like us too much either, but that's okay. If we all like the same thing, we'd all be married to Aunt B.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had enough stuff to go to this art show, and a friend of mine, she was a very smart girl. She used to work with me when I was still shoeing. She would pull shoes and really good at shaping shoes. While I was trimming the feet, she could look over from the anvil, shape them, and throw them down at my feet before I was even done. And I'd say, hey, slow down a bit. Oh, we got 8 to do. Come on. Smart girl, she educated in Chicago, and she got me this gig to go to this art show. So I went to the art show, and I'm setting up this tent. Everybody had to have the same color tent, white tent. Setting
Yeah.
up the tent, we get everything set up in there, and I'm walking around wanting to look at the other artist stuff. And I come back to the tent, and I said, "Hey Kim," I said, "these artist people, they're weird." And she says, "Yeah, no." Said you should fit in just fine. But anyway, I started making things, and next thing you know, in Chicago, they got money up there, and that's where you want to go. You can't make money working for poor people. I don't mean that in
Right.
a bad way, but poor people, your heart will get in the way, which is not wrong. I mean, we got to be good to poor folk, but they ain't going to pay you what a rich man's going to pay you for your work.
Mm-mm.
And my told me
Nope.
that many years ago. My cousin lived in California, Ontario, California, and I was in the Marine Corps out there. And I went to his shop on a weekend one time, and he's a good cousin. I love him to death. But he was a very good mechanic. He knew how to tear apart any engine when he was little, and he could build it back. And I went to his shop. He had Parnelli Joneses. Most people didn't know that Parnelli Jones had race boats too. He had drag boats, and he was working on Parnelli's
Okay.
boat, and he had somebody's motorcycle in there. And I said, "What are you doing to that motorcycle?" He said, "Well, I'm tuning it up." I said, "Well, how much do you get for tuning a motorcycle up? I mean, what do they got? Two spark plugs, you know?" I mean, and he goes, "I get $150." Now this was back in the 70s. Now $150 was a lot of money in the 70s. I said, "Man, you get $170 tune up motorcycle?" He said, "Yeah, he's a rich guy." He says, "You don't make money working for the poor folk." And I learned that. I mean, some of the rich people can be a pain in the pooper, but that's where the money's at. And everybody's got to shoe horses for all horses need care, and we all do it. We'll say, "I'll bring that kid's horse over here and we'll shoe it." But that's how I got started in art, was because I couldn't shoe horses anymore. Any more questions?
Just scratching the surface, Tom.
Yeah, man. So you found out pretty quick. Seems like then in school that just like you were using your natural talent to, it seemed like you realized it made other people happy, and when it made them happy, it made you happy. And I think like you said, you could have looked into that deeper and thought like, oh, they were using you or something, you know, or just like you because of your art. But it's, well, your art is you, so they liked
That's
you, and that's as far as you looked into it, you know.
I to this day, of course, not everybody's going to like you, and if they do, there's something wrong with you. That means
Yeah.
you're standing up for something, or you're
Hmm.
giving in somewhere. But it's been a good role for me. And getting back to what I said, I think God put people in my path. I met Roy in 1976. That was long before you boys were.
Yeah.
Well, I came home on leave from the Marine Corps. I hung around horse people before I went in the Marine Corps. I used to clean stalls when I was a kid over here that had 30 head, took care of them. And of course, I'd seen horseshoers come in. That's back when everybody had the coal forges in the back of their trucks. And it really intrigued me to watch them. But that was Roy Bloom. I came home on leave. They said, "You got to come meet this guy. He's kind of weird." And I said, "Well, I think I'll like him." So we went to his house,
Yeah.
and he was a horseshoer at the time. And he lived in this old farmhouse, and he lived upstairs, and you had to walk up these stairs, and it was in the winter. And he, like you, Riley, he was skinning skunks and raccoons, and he on the walls of the stairs going up. As
Hmm.
I'm walking up there, I go, "I think I'm gonna like this guy." Well, I'd never seen him. We walked in. He had like a thing almost like a piranha in a aquarium. He lived by himself.
I did own like 6 piranhas at one time too.
I remember that.
Well, he had one fish in there. I I found out later it was an Oscar. I don't even know what that is. But
I don't
now
either.
you throw a freaking night crawler in there and he'd tear it to pieces. So I learned that. But anyway, I walked in there. Well, you had to go through his kitchen first, and then you went into the living room, which was just little. Everything was little, and all over the living room was wood chips
Hmm.
everywhere from carving. He was
Oh.
carving an owl. He had an owl there that he was carving. And then he was sitting there in a chair, and he had hair down like yours, Gavin. And he's sitting there with a vest made out of deer skin that he chewed to make it soft. Now, I all
Okay.
the time, more and more. He's taking beads and he's beading this vest out of deer hide. And I said, they said, Roy Bloom, this is Tom Willoughby. He said, nice to meet you. And he went right back at it, putting them beads on there. And I talked to him. We became friends. So every time I'd come home on leave, I'd try to go see him. He probably forgot about me because he was a big shot horseshoer. Even at that time, he had a lot of clients. Then when
Hmm.
I got out of the Marine Corps, uh, I went to shoeing school because I found out the GI Bill would pay for that. And I went to horseshoeing school and became a horseshoer. But while I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. That's north of
Okay.
Philadelphia. And I was there during the time they filmed the Rocky movie when they down in Philadelphia and Broad Street they call it. I was there for 3 years. Well, when I first got there, they shipped me from El Toro, California to Willow Grove, and we we had to in El Toro they had a bull riding team, a Marine Corps bull. It wasn't really a team. We just had a bunch of bulls
Collective group.
played around. Everybody got together with like minds, club more or less. And then when we got out there, I said, "There ain't gonna be no bull riding out here in New Jersey." I said, "There's no way in Pennsylvania. There's no bull riding." So I was kind of depressed because I thought I wasn't gonna find nobody with my mindset, and I wasn't no good at bull riding, by the way. I was a professional faller offer. I had no, but I never turned one out. That's my only bragging point. I never turned one. I don't care how bad he was. I was going to fall off that one too. But
Yep.
but I was on listening to the radio. We was working on airplanes, and I heard them advertise a rodeo in Woodstown, New Jersey. A lot
Okay.
of the old timers know where Woodstown's at, and that's where Bruce Daniels was from. That area. Well, I didn't know Bruce Daniels from Adam because I wasn't a horseshoer at the time. But I said I'm going to go to this rodeo and I'm going to enter up, and it was a PRCA rodeo, so it was a top of the line rodeo. I mean,
Oh yeah.
this rodeo was started the same time Donnie Gay's rodeo was started down there in by Fort Worth. In
Okay.
fact, a guy named that started it was Howard Harris, and his boy still runs that rodeo. It's still a PRCA show every Saturday night from like May until September, every Saturday night. And
Nice.
Donnie Gay fell off a lot of bulls there. That fella, Donnie Gay is not going to come up here and ride any of my bulls. So that stuff of pulling their name out of a hat, I don't think was working. You know what I'm for the draw. I think they said, well, there's his bull right there.
Just give him the rankest one.
Most of these bulls came from Okeechobee, Florida, down in the Florida. But
Okeechobee.
get back, quit talking about that stuff. Uh, I met a boy there. He's 3 years older than me. His name Frank Beam. He was the guy that actually started me shoeing horses. He worked at Penn National Racetrack, and I met him at that rodeo. We became friends instantly. I became friends with his brother, and his brother taught me how to float horse teeth, and because we used to float teeth and shoe horses at the same stop, man. You could do it all. Might as well make all the money. And
Uh-huh.
anyway, that's where I started Frank Beam, and then I became when I got out, went to shoeing school over here in Illinois. That's where I started going with Roy, and me and Roy became a whole. Our businesses were pretty much meshed together, and for 7 years, me and Roy Bloom shot horses together. And how cool can that be?
Oh yeah. No, that's a pretty big one, especially because you guys. I love being around you guys together when you guys are there because you guys are just feeding off each other so much. So I could only imagine how much it
It,
was in that time with you guys shoeing horses every
it was
day.
fun because Roy is very analytical. Roy has a different kind of brain than I got. Uh, but you're right. Because of the way we were, we could build anything. We could shoe any horse, anything, because one guy kind of picked up for the other guy, and and we would back then we were shoeing keg shoes. We would hand make shoes at least once a week at the horse, and then we would look each other's and we would critique each other and on our work.
Mm-hmm.
But we were pretty much all keg shoes, and but we wanted to learn more about everything. So if Bruce Daniels was ever in the area giving on a clinic, me and Roy were on the
Yeah.
front seat, right on the bleachers, watching every blow he did. And anybody else that came in that we, what got me and Roy interested, I'll start to tell you this story. I want to leave some stories for Roy to tell, because you can't on all of them, okay? Everything, you don't believe all of it. But one day Roy says, "Hey Tom, they have this thing called a banna," and I said, "What's a banna?" And he told me, "Artist Blacksmith of America," whatever, however they say that. And he says it's at Studebaker Homestead in Ohio. Guy, Mr. Studebaker, and he had a homestead down there in Ohio by Troy, Ohio, where they have SOFA now, the big blacksmith get together. But it was at Studebaker. And Roy says, "We'll just take your truck. We'll throw a mattress in the back of this one truck, and we'll sleep on the mattress. It'll camp. We had a camper, it wasn't just a little cap, and we'll sleep in that, and we'll stay there 2 or 3 days." I said, "Well, what are we going to see?" He said, "Blacksmiths. They're going to be making stuff. Making stuff. All right, let's go." So we went, and we pulled in late at night because we shod horses that morning, and we found a place to park, and we just jumped in the back of the truck, and went to sleep. Next morning, a cannon woke us up. They were shooting a cannon right behind the truck. But of course, I'm sure there wasn't no live rounds in it, but it was one of them Civil War cannons. And
Mm-hmm.
popped their heads out of that camper and lifted it up, and we're watching the smoke rings come out of that thing. And Roy goes, "I think we're going to like it here." I said, "Why?" So we walked around and we found this guy named Tom Joyce. Tom Joyce is a wonderful, wonderful blacksmith. If you guys ever heard of him, did you ever hear him?
I
Look
haven't.
him
No.
up. Tom Joyce. He was probably about 8 years older than me and Roy. Well, Roy's old. Roy's 70 years old. I'm 65. So Roy's my elder. But anyway, Tom Joyce, we watched him and he made faces on the end of steel. Like, I mean, a big, like 2-inch bar. And he put it in a post vise and he was showing you how to make a face. And
Like a smiley face or a human
human
face.
faces, yeah. Beards and mustaches and everything and hair. Well,
Okay.
we're intrigued. Now, I mean, now you got us. Me and Roy's are just zoned in on that stuff. The guy's making a hinge. We got to eat lunch, and heck, that guy came over and sat by me and Roy, and we felt honored because we're thinking this guy's a mystery wizard. This guy's making cool stuff. And he
Mm-hmm.
had good stories to tell. Very smart man. And anyway, after that weekend, we saw quite a bit of other guys, but Tom Joyce was the one that really lit the fire. Roy goes, "We get home, we're going to make all that shit." I said, "Okay." Good. So we went into a shop, and we had I don't know, about an inch round bar. He said, "Let's make a face on this bar." I said, "Okay." So we started collecting tools and fixing punches and doing different things. And Roy says, I would say, "You take a heat, I take a heat. You take a heat, I." So we built this thing. He goes, "Tom," and he told me this like 2 years ago. "I have tried to make a face as good as that face," and he says, "I still can't do it." And I said, "Well, I probably couldn't either, because it was like going to a NASCAR race for the first time. We were just all excited and, "Oh, let's try that." We went at it without abandon. You know what I'm saying? There was nothing we couldn't try. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's what you got to be. You just got to say, "I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that." But he goes, I can't make another one like that. I just can't build another face like that. And I've built quite a few faces, and I got to admit, I can't build one as cool as that one is either. I said, "Did you lose it?" He said, "Not yet. I still
I wonder though if like, because I have that happen with some items that I make sometimes, and I think that it's like I wasn't scared of
Yes,
anything, and I didn't have anything in mind.
right.
I was just doing it.
Yes, and sometimes that's the fun about art that I like. All right, I'm not really a good man with a ruler. Roy will tell you that. I stuck with a ruler. I stuck with all kind of things like that. When it comes to mathematics, I glaze over like a donut. But
Yeah.
if you give me a parameter, I could get the parameter. You let me fill in the middle. 'Cause there's nobody to say, "Hey, you did that wrong." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just do it, and that's the freedom. A lot of times of art is that you have freedom to do it. I loved making horseshoes years ago when I was a kid. Matter of fact, me and Roy and two other guys, Dan Hausman, uh, Doug Hahn, there's about four of us that would gather up like on a Sunday, and we'd back up
Hmm.
and we would build shoes and we would do things. But the shoemaking, you have to be precise. That's precision. And sometimes I get tired of having to pucker my butthole, if you know what I'm saying. I'd rather just make a pizza. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Oh yeah.
Forge things that I enjoy, and I'll tell you a quick story. We was in Roy's mom's garage, his dad's garage, and that's where Roy did a lot of his blacksmithing when he still lived around his mom. He had a table forge in there, and we did. I don't think we had a post vise, but I would come over there like on Sunday afternoons, and this is when we were still learning. I mean, we didn't know much, but we had seen a ram's head made,
Hmm.
and we seen it. Didn't see the guy build it, but we seen it, and we'd say, "All right, well, you got to do this, you got to do that." You know, you dissect it backwards. You know what I mean? When you got
Yep.
to go back to where what did it look like when he started, and how did he get to this? So I had made a couple ram's heads, and Roy says, "I think I'm going to make a ram's head." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful." I said, "You go ahead and make a ram's head." He said, "What are you going to make?" I said, "I'm going to make an elephant head." So, and we were allowed. We didn't have rules. I mean, if we had a welder in there, we were going to use a welder to do
Yeah.
things. I mean, that's what we did. One time, did you ever cheat and only no one looking? Do you get that? Oh, something. Can you?
Yeah. I don't know what that noise is. That's weird.
I don't know either.
I might be something with Riley.
Maybe he got something in the microwave.
No, so the way he has his setup is he's in his shoeing
Oh,
trailer and then he's got a inverter to power his laptop and
are
everything.
you good, Riley?
Yeah, I think I'm here. We're just lost the lights in here. I guess the battery wasn't happy.
But anyway, Jim Keith said, I said, "Jim, do you ever cheat?" And he says, "Only when no one's looking." I said, "Oh, that's a good one." And then he said, "If Michelangelo had a welder, a wire feed welder, you don't think he wouldn't have used it?" I said, "You're right. That'll get me on another course." Anyway, I even lost what I was talking about. I'll,
There's no rules with
there you
blacksmithing
go.
and being an
Yes.
artist.
Well, here's the thing too. When you show me something made by a blacksmith, and they say that's all one piece, there's no electric welds on there. That's all. Now I
Hmm.
appreciate that. I do because I can look at that and go, "Wow, this guy worked hard."
Like, how the heck?
Yeah, how did he do this? How did he do that? But if you tell the public that, if you're trying to sell art to the public, they don't care. They don't care if you get out of one piece or 10 pieces. They either like it or
Hmm.
they don't. So if you're making a lot of stuff for uneducated people, I'm not meaning that in a bad way. Then if you can make it quicker by doing it this way, because they ain't gonna appreciate it if it's made out of one piece. If you know what I'm saying. In other
Yeah.
words, they're not gonna break out their wallet and say, "Well, I'm gonna give you more money for that." They're not gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to say, "Well, all right," because I used to think everything I built, blacksmiths are gonna see it. It's gonna be a blacksmith, guys. Well, I had to get out of that. If you want to build things quicker,
Mm-hmm.
you got to do what you got to do to make the money. But anyway, Royden says, I'm going to make a, I it came back to me. Royden says, I'm going to make a ram's head. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to make an elephant. So we went to work. He was in the shop. Nobody's watching each other. We're making it. And my elephant head's coming around pretty good. I took two big old nails, carpenter nails, and made tusks coming out of it. And I broke it and made it as a hook thing. And Roy's over there making his ram's head. And finally he come over and he showed it to me. He said, look at this, Tom. And I looked at it. I said, that looks like a moose. He goes, yeah, it does look like a moose, don't it? But yeah. I said, so take them horns you got all squeezed out there, make and make antlers and put in him, and then weld them on. So he did, and he still has that on his wall too. But he uses this story. He goes, you know the difference between a good blacksmith and a bad blacksmith? A good blacksmith, if he tells you he was going to make a ram's head, he makes a ram's head, not a moose head. So in my shop, we kind of have if we have hammer ins or somebody comes over, I'll say, what are you making? You ever have them guys that reach something and then they go over there and they start banging around an anvil and they're not telling you what they're doing?
Because they don't necessarily know
I
yet.
make them tell me what they're doing because I said, this
Uh,
shop, you got to call your pocket.
yeah.
Because if you say you're this and it turns out to be that, then you sucked. You did bad. We all do it. I got a pile of junk behind my shop. I don't show nobody.
Yeah.
It's been good. I've been taught well. I learned, and I hated school, but I loved horseshoeing. I think that's the key too, is to find what a kid wants to do in life. Well, maybe they don't know exactly, but you know their skills that they're interested in, and you nurture them along to that direction. And I think we'll have a better world that way. They have a choice. They've already kind of defined their line. A lot of times they say today, "Oh, they're too young to learn that. They're too young to learn this. They're too." No, in the old days, they were learning stuff when they were 8. When they were 9, they were taking care of stores. When they were 10, because they were taught and they weren't coddled to the point saying they're too young to learn. That's like horses. I'm sure you guys been in this. You got a horse that's kind of unruly, and they've had this horse for 3 years from a baby, and it's unruly.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, hey, you got to make this horse mind a bit. Well, it's just only 3 years old. And then I go, what are you gonna do? Wait till he's 7? You have to teach. I mean, there's no excuses. They can learn. As soon as they learn to say no, it's time to teach them. When
Yep.
they learn that,
Yeah, it's kind of with horses and with kids. It seems like I'm pretty young, so it's like I shoot this out there, but it's like
yeah,
you either spoil them, like this for the common themes, they get spoiled to the point where they're unruly and mad, or they get their confidence so shut down they never think they can do anything.
exactly, exactly. My grandkids live right next door. They're homeschooled. Every day is an education in my shop. Every day they'll come in here.
That's cool.
We talk about everything. This morning, well, we've had a few snoopers around the chicken coop next door. So, some of
Mm-hmm.
them raccoons, in the fall and the spring, they get really kind of, you got to put them in check occasionally. We
Yep.
went there, my granddaughter, she's been setting traps here last couple nights, and we've caught quite a few. And
Wow.
But she learns that you have to protect those chickens. Those chickens make eggs for us,
Yep.
and them coons want them.
Yep.
Well, they can go find something else. Them are our chickens. And
Yeah.
Yep.
it's a hard lesson, but years ago, if you needed to shoot a coyote, you shot a coyote. Nowadays, people go, "Oh, don't you can't do that." Well, yeah, I can. My finger still works. I got one good eye. Still
Yeah.
do it, and I
Mm-hmm.
do it. We keep things in check around here. You know, when I was younger in the '70s, a raccoon hide would bring you $35. In the '70s, you know,
Wow. So that's pretty good money then.
yes. Well, everybody and their brother was trapping, doing whatever it took to get some coons. Muskrat would bring you $7 if you saw one along the road and threw it in the truck.
Decent.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, back in them days, I have nothing against coyotes, raccoons, and I'm sure you don't either, Riley. You have
Love
respect
them.
for these animals, the way
Yep.
the way they're cunning, and but around here where I live, nobody keeps them in check no more, and there's just way too many of them.
They can just do whatever they want.
Yes, they rule the night.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of bad because nobody keeps them in check. Back then, people would keep them in check because there was a fur market. We had trappers. Every ditch around here had muskrat, conibear traps. We had them all in there, and we was catching. But nobody does it no more because I don't know how much a muskrat hide is by you, Riley. What is that?
Muskrats, you're gonna be lucky to get like $4 for a muskrat, and you might get $10 for a
Yeah,
raccoon. Which anybody, $10 doesn't go very far
no.
today, and anybody that has ever gone through the hassle of
Yep,
trapping and putting up
yep.
raccoons knows that it's a lot more work than $10.
So nobody does.
And that's yeah, it's just like anything else. Everybody follows the money, and things change, so they're not worth any money anymore. And even where I live in the pretty far west, and in the place where there's like not that long ago, this was homesteaded
Hmm.
area, and but it's still already we have other people moved into the area where I'm the only trapper in our whole entire valley. So it's like, but I don't do it for the money. I'm still doing it just to make like,
You
in my opinion, that's how our world meshes pretty well together. Like you, is that me and the wildlife respect each other's roles in our circle.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you, man. I'm proud of you when I see them bobcats you catch and all that. It's good to see that guys are doing stuff like that. I mean, heck, when you're a horseshoer, you can combine that right into your business. Well, you got to drive over here, got to stop, check my traps, do this and that. But anyway, I hope I entertained you for a little while.
No, this has been great, Tom. If you don't gotta go real quick,
I'll go.
we'd love to hear like how did was Roy your first introduction to
No,
horseshoeing? Like, or were you already like seeing horses and horseshoeing before you went to the Marine Corps?
well, I was taking care of horses, and like I say, there was an old blacksmith that came there, and I was cleaning 32 head of stalls, 32 stalls every morning and every night because they wanted clean stalls. You had to pick them in the morning, then you had to pick them at night because they were catering to people with money. So you got to knock the cobwebs and you got to do all that. But that's where I first saw a horseshoer making horseshoes in a coal fire in the back of his truck, and I thought,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Went to the Marine Corps, Pennsylvania, met Frank Beam. Frank Beam was the shoer. He's still now the lead shoer at Penn National Racetrack Thoroughbred, and I'm still good friends with him, and I love him like a brother. But that's where I learned. That's where I got interested because
Okay.
Frank would, on my days off from the Marine Corps, I would ride with Frank, and I'd hold horses for him at the racetrack. And one day, and we were pretty fit in them days. We lifted a lot of weights and we ran. We weren't big muscle heads, but we were fit little guys. And he says, "I'll bet you can't pull a shoe off a horse." Well, I thought, well, I'm going to take that challenge up. And of course, just like everybody learning, your legs do the Elvis thing, and you're holding the horse up, and you don't, finally get it off. And he goes, "Well, you got a shoe off. I bet you can't run the knife." And then next thing you know, I'm trying to run the knife, and every chance I got, when I was on my weekends, I'd go hang around Frank and his brother, and they were really good horsemen. They were probably even till this day, Frank Bean to me is probably the best horseman I ever met. When it comes to groundwork, to being around a horse, to make one mind, he was it. And Frank is, like I say, Frank and Roy are about the same size and have the same mustache. But them two guys, Roy and Frank, that's the two guys that inspired me the most. And because Roy was such a good, I came home because my dad was sick after I got out of the Marine Corps, and so that's when I started shoeing horses around here and went to shoeing school. But Roy says, you know, Tom, that's when we became friends and started shoeing together. One day I made something. We used to try to out carve each other. We would take old frost shoeing knives and take their handles and carve weird things in the handles. And then when the knives got old, we would give them away to our customers. But Roy taught me this, and it has stuck with me for many, many years. I thought I was done with something, whether it was a blacksmith thing or a wood carving, whatever it was. But Roy goes, "Are you done with that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm done with that." He says, "Well, let me bring that home, and I'll bring it back tomorrow." I said, "All right." He walks in. He says, "Now it's done." And I saw the difference between what I thought was done to being finished. Because Roy checked it, like how when you build one of these knives, you're looking at every little nick and blemish, ain't you? You can see it when it's across the room. When you make a horseshoe, Gavin, you can see every place where you stumbled on that horseshoe. Because you remembered, well, right there at that spot, I kind of did that to it. So, but before I didn't really notice that stuff. But Roy taught me, you got to look at everything, man. You got to look at everything. And he's always been like that. I've got a fuller up here on my wall. It's the first fuller Roy Bloom made on a power hammer. And it's a beauty. And I've had it for probably 39 years. He made it with a little giant power hammer, 25 pounder. And I'm in the shop doing something else because I didn't like the power hammer. And I hear something fall on the floor. What's the matter with that? He said, "I don't want it." Why? He said, "The eye's a little crooked." And I went, "I'll just hold it crooked. I don't care. That won't." He goes, "Get it out of here." Well, I took it. And it's up there. Let me see if I can see it. That's it right there. That's the first Fuller Roy made on a power hammer.
Looks pretty dang nice, if you ask me.
It's a beauty.
Yeah.
And I have made shoes with this thing. I've used it to texture stuff. I've done all kind of stuff. And then Roy comes in my shop now. He'll go, "Where's that Fuller? I want to see the Fuller."
Uh,
So that's it. It don't have no stamp. Me and Roy didn't have no stamps. Roy did get a stamp. No, no. Roy used letter stamps. He would put RB on everything. RB. And I didn't have no letter stamps. So one day Roy comes in my shop, and I got a shoe vise here with it. A lot of the old stuff has this. It had 2023 on them.
hmm.
I had number stamps. I didn't have letter stamps. I had numbers. He goes, "What's 2023?" I said, "That's my initials." He does 23.
Oh, so the letter in the
Yeah.
alphabet.
So anyway, we had fun. And back in them days, nobody had really stamps. We didn't really care. We just made stuff. So a lot
hmm.
of stuff. I mean, occasionally we'll see something. that we made years ago, and we'll go, holy crap, Roy, we didn't even have a mark to put on them. We didn't care. Just happy to get it. And we made a lot of stuff for the conventions. Walt Taylor, I don't know. We made two things. I got into a kick 35 years ago making door knockers. So I made all kind of door knockers. A lady come to me one time said, "Can you make a dash hound head?" Now this is 30 years ago. I mean, long time. Didn't know much about blacksmithing, but we knew how to push forward anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I sold a house to a lady, and they raised dash hounds. Can you make a door knocker with a dash hound head on it as the knocker? I said, well, yeah, I guess so. You just flatten them instead of making a ram's head. You flatten them ears, and pull them down. Anyway, I made it. My little nephew, probably about, and he come into the place where I was building it, and he goes, "What you making, Tom, Uncle Tom?" And I said, "Does what kind of dog is that? What does that look like? What kind of dog?" He said, "Dash hound." I said, "Got it." So, but I made door knockers, and I came in Roy's shop one time. I said, "We got to make the top of an anvil, and then the knocker part will be a hammer, and it'll hang with the horn down." So we made it. We made it 3D to where it had the step in the anvil and everything, and the horn kind of come off the door. I
Mm-hmm.
made one, we made one like that. Then Roy made one look like the face of a Bruce Daniels anvil because that's what we got into because Bruce was really pushing them, and we liked Bruce, so we had Bruce Daniels anvils. And matter of fact, I still like them. I do. I'm kind of the biggest proponent for them. But anyway, he made one and I made one, and we think, I'm not sure, and Roy probably tell me this week because he's coming down. I think Walt Taylor bought one many years ago, and he put it on the office. I don't know which one he bought, but they were both in the AFA auction. We made a hummingbird. Roy had gotten that power hammer, and he said, "I'm going to make a calla lily." I didn't even know what a calla lily was. I said, "All right, you make a calla lily." He said, "But you're going to make a hummingbird to go in it." And I said, "Now Roy's educated. Roy's got more education than me."
Mm.
He goes, "Well, you make a calla lily go in there. I mean, a hummingbird." And I said, "All right. I've never made one." He said, "Can you make one?" I said, "Yeah, I can make one." So I made the little hummingbird with a big long nose, but I made that all one piece. And I didn't know how I was going to put wings on it, so I made a slice in it and got copper, made copper wings, and then I made a copper tail. And I just hammered them on there so it holds, tech
Mm-hmm.
copper. And we put the nose in that calla lily, and he made the calla lily out of a coil spring. So he made that stem real thin, and we had an old hammerhead, and he put the stem in the eye of the hammerhead, and he slammed that shut, and that held the stem in the calla lily, and it would just do that. When you touch it, it would bounce. We thought we're pretty proud of that son of a buck. That's pretty cool. And I forget, Roy came here to the house about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and he said, "I saw that hummingbird that me and you made at a guy's house." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." And I forget the guy's name, but Roy knows the guy's name. He said, "I'm sitting in there and I look over there by wherever it was at." He says, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "Oh, I bought that in the auction at the convention many years ago." He said, "Do you know who built that?" He goes, "Yeah, me and Tom." We, but it's kind of cool as you get older, you see your stuff, I mean, anything you build, you see stuff, people still like it. It was a cool thing. But then that hummingbird thing, see, Roy Bloom took that hummingbird thing to the next level. He said, "Tom, do you think you can make one out of one piece?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "You go home and think it." Because I had a pretty good analytical mind of how to, if I do this, out of one piece, you got to make it out of one piece because you want to impress the blacksmith.
Yeah.
So I get home, and all we had for really big stock, we had draft horse stock, inch and a quarter by half. Thought,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's see. We take an inch and a quarter by half, and I went home, and my wife will tell you I get on tangents. In other words, write songs. I write songs, and I'll write songs from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, and I'm fully focused on that. It don't bother me with nothing else. But in them days, and I still go back and forth. I flow. I like to. I got too many interests, if you know what I mean, Gavin. I just too many interests. And I think
Yep.
guys both are like that because you go, wow, that's cool. I'm gonna give that a go. And then on
Mm-hmm.
that, but that's a cool thing. But anyway, I go in the bedroom and I'm laying there in bed and I'm thinking, all right, if I take it like that, now I got a piece of paper and I'm drawing what I got to do on the paper. Next morning, I called Roy. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have no answering machines either. Because if we did, we wouldn't listen to him anyway. But anyway, Roy, I called Roy. I said, Roy, I got that hummingbird making it in one piece. He goes, you come over tonight and let's do it. So we did. We got it done. So Roy, I don't know, what was it, 4 years ago they were in Urbana and Craig took the trailer over there in Virginia for Urbana. He had the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And Roy made a hummingbird there. And because somebody had a video and I was watching Roy build that hummingbird. And I thought, I ain't made one. The only one I made was that first one that I made where we figured it out how to build it.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm gonna have to make one of those. So I called Roy up and said, what was the stock you used? How'd you measure that thing? He goes, well, you're the one that showed me. I said, well, I can't remember, Roy. Because see, Roy will take something and he makes it better. He really does. He just he can do that. He's got that. He knows how to. Well, we could do this and it'll make it better, and we'll do that and he could do. But since then, I made a pile of them just to say, well, I know how to do it now again. I know, but that was a cool thing. The coolest thing though was about 2 or 3 months later, Roy used to get the Amble's Ring, which is a magazine from Urbana. And he calls me on the phone. He said, Tom, there's a one piece hummingbird in this book. And he says, a guy lives in, I forget, straight due east of where me and Roy live. On the same, what is that? Latitude. Latitudes are
Yep.
horizontal, right? Latitude,
Yeah.
longitudes up and down. He lived on the same latitude as us. He says, but his hummingbird was different. It was made out of one piece, but they cut it and then they pulled the wings off the top and then split those wings. And I like those; those are okay. But I think the one me and Roy makes are kind of a little cooler because you can make it into an airplane or anything you want it to. Eagles. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
Roy goes, "This guy must have had the same freaking ideas as you did at the very same time." So he tells that story all the time. He says there's an idea sphere out there, and it bounces on the earth. And if you'll get it. If not, it'll bounce off your head and hit somebody else.
That's a good one.
But you got to build it, right? You got to build it, and they will come. That's what I always say. Just like that movie. Look,
Kind of one of the first like projects that I remember seeing that you had built, and it always still sticks with me, is the bull, the bucking bull that you made, that sculpture.
that's one of my favorites. That was built for a good friend of mine who was raising bucking bulls at the time, and he used to be a horseshoer, and he became an auctioneer, which is really a good job. It's not hard on your back. You get to wear nice clothes. Anyway,
Don't get dirty.
you're right, right. But I kind of like getting dirty. But Doug was raising these bucking bulls and taking some to Texas to do whatever. And Doug Hahn, good friend, I still love him. He lives in Watseka, which is about an hour and 20 minutes south of me. And he owns a chuck wagon, a real nice chuck wagon too. We made a lot of parts and stuff for that chuck wagon. But he says, Tom, can you make me a steel bucking bull? Now, I love my friends, and I think you guys will be in the same when I tell you this. You'll probably, when your friend asks you to build something, you don't really want to charge them, do you? It kind of bothers you to charge them. It
Mm.
bothers me. And you go, oh, yeah, I'll build you one, Doug. Well, you know you're not going to charge them, so you kind of put it off on the back burner. You kind
Oh yeah.
because you go, I'll work on that when I get time because I'm not
Yeah.
much. You know what I mean? So I did that for a long time, for about 6, 7 months. He was bugging me. So I was in my shop here, I was at the forge, and I had a young man in here. Good, I gave him my shoeing business. He's a good kid. And Doug come in, and I'm working over there, and I don't hear him talking over there. And I got a swedge block over here, and when Doug left, there was a $500 check laying on this swedge block with a hammer on top of it. And I looked at it and said "bull" on it. Said "bull." And I go, what did Doug do leave this check here for? He said, well, he walked over to the door and was talking to me while you were working. I said, what do I got to do to get him to make that bull?
Leave some money.
That he said, we'll probably give him some money. He'll probably get started. Well, I called him, Doug, this is your money here. I said, he said, nope, I know what it is. I'm going to pay you to build that bull. And he paid me very, very, very well. That wasn't the first installment. Bull weighed
Oh, nice.
24 pounds. And I started it one day. Probably 2 or 3 days later, I said, you come and I'm going to show you what I'm starting with. And I think I had a piece of 2 inch by, I don't know, 2 inch by inch and 3/4. And I put the arch in the back of that for the bull to go up. I kind of sketched it on the table. Said, here's what I'm going to do. And to forge it all out of one piece, you couldn't. I mean, you'd have trouble, in my mind, the way I seen it. So I made the body. Then I forged 4 heads for it to get the one I wanted. There's heads laying around here somewhere. And then forged the legs, and then I would add stuff with a MIG welder and blend stuff where I would. And he would come in here and he'd go, well, that tail's got to have a little more twist in it. Now, who's the artist here?
Yeah. Who's paying who here?
But it came out real sweet. And I took it down because he said, I'll pay to have a mold made of that for bronzes. I've sold probably about 5 of them bronzes. I don't push them. But I had bronzes made from that. But I got it.
Really?
The steel one looks better than the bronzes in my, because you could see the hand in it, you know.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
original.
but I was pretty proud of that. And he went and spent good money for a table that makes one revolution for a minute, and then it sits on there, and in its front room, he's got lights on it. Oh, it's quite an experience. You could sit around and drink wine and watch it all night. But
That's cool.
but yeah, he's proud of that, and I'm proud he asked me, and it came out. It came out pretty good. I was sending Roy pictures saying, "Well, does this look right? Does that look right?" I had probably 40 pictures of bucking bulls all over my. So no matter where I went, I could look up and say, "Oh yeah, their legs are like this," or "This is the way they look when they do that." And you always miss the mark somewhere. You really do. When you're going to look at something like that and you go, "Well, that angle right there is bad." Then you say, "Well, how could I have fixed it?" Well, maybe if I fixed it there, it would have messed up this angle. You,
Hmm.
so sometimes you got to go, I'm done. and I came to that thing. The horns on that thing are stainless, and the rope, the flank rope, is stainless too. And then that was probably the most pain in the ass making that stainless flank rope, but it came out sweet, and I was glad he asked me.
Well, I tell you, I love that piece, and I think it's like one of the coolest ones that I've seen you do. And I even, if we get on a conversation with some friends or whatever, I brag and I show
Well,
them a picture of that thing because it's
well,
that cool. Like it's pretty
there's
awesome.
some. I made punches for his eyes. I could have done. I could have got in there with a Dremel tool and played around, but I didn't. I made punches, and I made punches for the noses. You know, they're. It looks kind of like a teardrop thing or a yin
Hmm.
and yang thing. You know what I mean? That Jap,
Yep.
whatever that is. But it's kind of like a deal. And then you got to make two of them because you can't put them both on the same. So you make them all, and you. I'm really, I got a lot of punches, but a lot of times I'll pick it up and say, "What did I make that for?" Make something else out of it. You know, that's what one thing guys don't understand. You don't have to leave stuff the way it is. You can change it, make it suit you. They,
Uh huh.
Roy come in here when he was started making all them tools, and he moved when he started doing all that. And he says, I'm making pretzels. I said, well, how many pretzels you got to make? He goes, oh, I've made thousands of them. I thought, I've got about four pretzels. I've had them pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
Roy says, thank God the people that buy my pretzels are not like you. Because I
Yeah.
know guys, and I'm sure you guys do too. You know, if you got a good piece of steel made out of a pretzel's made out of a good piece of steel, right? Well, if the tip breaks, you can fix it. You're a blacksmith.
Oh yeah. Uh
But a
huh.
lot of them chuck them in a truck and they go buy a new one. They just
Yep.
now me, I'm not. My first pretzels were made out of coil spring. That's what we did. Well, you
Hmm.
give me a piece of good steel now. What? Now I out of it. So I see guys come in here and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I broke that pretzel. I'm gonna get a new one." I'll say, "Well, can I have that one?" And they'll go, "Yeah, you can make it out of it." I'm a, like goes back to me being a tightwad. I can make anything work. Roy used to say, "You're the only guy I know to go out and shoe horses with a handful of nails and a claw hammer and make it look all right." Yeah, it's good old horseshoe, and I'm glad to see good people like you boys in it. There's a lot of good people out there. All these youngsters that are out there in the world championship blacksmiths. It's good to watch. I love to sit down and watch you guys because you guys are bringing it to the next level, and you
Yeah.
gathered up so much information through the years, and I'm glad you boys are doing it. It makes us proud as old timers. We go, man, Roy, we didn't have them tools, but you guys to a next level, and then hopefully there'll be another group that'll take it to the next level. But
Absolutely.
it's an independent job, and it's the best job in the world being a horseshoer, in my opinion. I used to pray at night, and I mean this. I would say, Lord, let me always be a horseshoer. I said, Lord, don't never let me have to quit. But I had to quit, and I got really sad about that when I felt like I lost my identity. You guys
Yeah.
have been to parties or something, and you'll find 12 carpenters there. You'll find 10 truck drivers there, but usually only one horseshoer. And you're and
Usually.
guess what? It does make you go, I'm the horse.
Uh huh.
It's a proud, proud occupation. I, and I tell
Absolutely.
people, I say, they'll say, "Oh, you charge too much. You do this, you do that." I said, well, I don't see a line of guys wanting to come over here and shoe your horse. There's not a line of guys out there waiting to freaking shoe your horse. Not many of us. Not the good ones. Not the ones that strive to do the best. They're not out there, and that's why a horseshoer gets paid well.
Mm-hmm.
good, you should get paid well. Simple as that. And always be pushing that envelope. Don't worry about it. Push that envelope. Get a little more money. Get a little more talent. Get a little more money. You know who Dan Hausman is? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, me and Dan went to horseshoeing school together, and we were
Okay.
terrors. We were they they we did everything that we wasn't supposed to really, but we were worried about getting off at 4:30. We wanted to get out of school so we could go play pool.
Okay.
So, and it was a college town, so there was all kind of stuff to do. So we was always so we would walk around, and me and Dan already knew how to clinch full shoes when we went. So we had a pretty good understanding of shoeing horses when we went. So we would get done quick as we could with our horse, and we had to make handmaids, and we would walk around because they wouldn't let you leave until the last guy's done. Well, we wanted them to be done at 4:30.
Yeah, we got pool to go
That's
play.
right. So we would go, hey, get that shoe from that guy, Tom. And
Speed this up.
we pushed him on, but Dan makes a lot of money. Dan, he's one of them big jumping horse guys, and I'm proud of him. I love him. We had a lot of good times together, that guy. And he used to work with Roy occasionally too. We had a lot of good shoers around here when I was younger. Now there's a lot of good ones around here now, but I just don't know them real well, and I don't get to see their work, and I don't get to. Is there any more questions?
Yeah.
Man, you got one more. Shoot for it, Gavin.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to talk about you got to judge a WCB contest this year with Roy. How was that?
Me, Roy, and Terry Holst.
Yep.
Great time. I was nervous as a cat. In other words, I couldn't poop for a day because you want to be fair. You really want to be fair. And
Mhm.
Roy, he said, "Well, here's what we'll do. You do this, and then I'm going to do that." And then I said, "All right, you're the boss. That's the way we'll do it." So, but it was really really fun. But it was really really hot and humid up there that weekend. It was horribly hot and humid. But them boys pushed forward, and everybody did good work up there. That that Troy Wood boy, he's a good kid, ain't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he
Now
is.
Yeah.
he's something. He really is. He's an impressive boy. I really like him. Uh, but when it came to see, a lot of guys don't really know if I was a horseshoer before. You know, it don't
Mhm.
say CF or CJF on my name here, but I am a CF. I just got tired of it. That's another story. But anyway, I am a CF, and I never competed much because I had a heart thing going on when I was younger. Roy didn't even know
Mm.
about it, and since then I've gotten it taken care of. But it was where my heart would go real fast, and it wasn't AFib. It was supraventricular tachycardia caused by Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. And I made my own diagnosis. I went got two heart books, and I was cross referencing because I didn't have a doctor at the time. And I said, "That's what I got right there." And sure enough, they did I wore a thing on my hip. I was shoeing a draft horse, and it kicked in and started doing it. So I got to record it, and they saw it, and they fixed it. So anyway, I did one contest, and my heart kicked in, and I was competing against Roy Bloom and Dan Hausman, and Bob Parks. He won that class because Roy came to me. He said, "You could get in the tong making. It's 45 minutes long. I forget what the steel was, but he said you don't have to make a rivet. He said they're going to give you a rivet, and the reins had to be certain length." I said, "Well, I ain't got a partner. You got my buddy Dan Hausman. He's going to be your partner, and he's a heck of a striker, man. I mean, he came from the Raptors." And I says, "I ain't got no striker." He says, "Well, I watch you do it with the 4-pound hammer. You get Kim to hand you tools and stuff." So Kim, my wife, we kind of went through it a couple times. Every time I stopped to shoe horses, I would make a pair of tongs, just
Hmm.
practice. So we got out there, and man, I got in the middle of that coal forges in the truck. I burn up a rain. And then since then, I found out that caffeine could make that kick in too, that heart.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet.
So I was always sucking down Pepsis or coffee in the morning. And it was hot then, and my heart kicked in. I burned up a rain. I pulled the other one out, laid it on the back of the truck. I sat down in the truck, and Roy never knew I had these things either. And Kim says, "What's going on, Tom?" I said, "Well, my heart's doing the thing." Brrr. He says, "Oh," and I had about a half hour, probably 25 minutes left in the thing. And Roy sees me sitting in the truck, and he runs over and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I burned up a rain, so I'm done. I ain't gonna do it no more." He goes, "They'll give you another piece of steel." I'm done. He runs over to the judge, who was Danny Ward, and he was a great guy. Danny Ward was wonderful. And he runs over there, and he comes running back with a piece of steel. He goes, here's your other piece of steel. Well, you had to make your own rivet.
Oh,
And Roy brought a rivet header with him. He can make a rivet. I didn't bring one because he said they're going to give you a rivet.
uh-huh. Dang it, Roy.
So Roy and Dan's over there, they're pounding. I thought, and then my heart reverted. It went, and it would go from doing that real fast and then go right back. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. And it was in the Marine Corps. It happened a few times, but it wouldn't last more than maybe 15 seconds. And then it'd wait a couple months and do it again. Well, it got so bad here 10 years ago where it would do it about every day, and it would last 45 minutes. So it's
Mm.
no fun. But anyway, I got the piece of steel out, and I rammed that thing through, and I forged it. But we didn't put the fancy little nipples on them. The tits on the. It would just had to be a pair of tongs that had to hold. I forget what size stock, and I remember what Danny said. He said, "I'm gonna stick a piece of 3 inches, 3 foot of this stock sideways in your tongs, shake them, and if they slop out, he says that's gonna be a bad thing." So he says, "I want them things to hold from the end, 3 feet." So that's what I had in my mind. I'm going to make these freaking things hold that steel. I don't care what they look like. Well, they look like Captain Caveman pounding them out. But I threw them on the ground probably 2 minutes before the buzzer went, and Roy's over there with a file making his all pretty. Well, Roy and Dan came in third, and we came in fourth, me and my wife. So I went, well, that ain't too bad for sitting down half the time. But
That's pretty good.
that was the last time I was in a contest. Uh, but that one up there, the WCB, was a wonderful experience. I enjoyed it greatly. We
Something I was wondering about is it hasn't been on a shoe list ever before. Why'd you guys choose a hook and the links? Like who kind of thought of that idea between you, Roy, and
well,
Terry?
Roy come to me and he said they asked us last year to be judges, and I kind of felt bad. I said, "Well, I don't shoe horses much no more." I says that's, and Roy goes, "Oh, no, 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 you're going to be one of the judges. You're going to be one." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't make many shoes." I says, "Well," Roy says, "You don't have to make a shoe." So I says, "I'm gonna call Craig." I said, "Craig, what? I don't want to make a shoe because I don't make many shoes. I don't think I have very much credibility in making shoes." He says, "Tom, you make whatever you want to make." That's what he said. I
Nice.
called Roy and I said, "See, that's called Clifton Routes used to call it a blacksmith hook, and but it usually had a devil's tail on it. But he showed me and Roy 35, 40 years ago on paper how to build one of those hooks. He loved to draw things, and he was the best power hammer man. Clifton Ralph was it. when it came to a power hammer. And that's where Roy got a lot of his education on the power hammer. But he showed us how to do it on paper, and he probably did show Roy how to build one on the power hammer. But after he showed us how to build one, as a young man, I was always trying to build them. I didn't realize, well, you could get another pair of tongs because us as farriers, I never saw one of them bolt tongs in my life. I was using flat tongs that we used to make shoes. So, well, how am I
Yep.
going to hang on to this thing? Well, there's tongs out there. Go look. So, so Roy says, well, that's what they can make is that hook. And Roy said, and let them make about 5 links. I said, no, that's enough. They only got an hour. Let's a hook and 2 links and a ring. And it's a good exercise for forging that hook if it's
Mm-hmm.
done correctly. And Clifton said, build one of them hooks, you could be a blacksmith. That's what he'd say. So that's why we did that. It was really a nod to Clifton Rouse. Clifton was a heck of a blacksmith, and he was like I say, a power hammer man. He'd love your power hammer, Riley, because before he died, he came in here and he saw my shop, and I tried to keep my shop halfway squared away, because he only lived about 16 miles away from where I live now. Clifton did, and he came in here. We had a party. Dan Hausman was here and stuff, and Clifton was toward the end there when he was getting about ready to pass, 80 something. And he walks in my shop and he'd shuffle, kind of walking, and he cuss a lot. And he smoked cigarettes without any filters. And he walked in the shop and he had a walker and he stopped. And I'll use the words he said. He looked around, he went, "This ain't no damn shop. This is a hospital." He said, "What, you're too damn close." And then he looked at my, he goes, "Oh, that thing just peck, 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 peck. It ain't nothing." So if he's seen your hammer, he'd be really proud of you.
He'd probably like my shop then too, because it's messy as all get out.
You know what? I I am a messy person. I In the house, I'm a mess. Okay, where I sit, there's all kind of crap. There's there's pocket knives. There's this, that, and the other. And I don't want to move once I'm sitting there. And I'm a mess. And in my shoeing truck in the cab, it was pretty messy. It was. I had horsehair all over it. You know, horse shit in the floor. But in the back part where I worked, I tried to keep that tidy. And Roy taught me that. Roy did. He said, if you keep your shit squared away in your shop, then when you have an idea to build something, then you know where your stuff is at, and it don't slow you down to building something. And I go, so that's what I try to do in my shop. But I've had 2 shops. This is my second one. My other one's down the hill over here. That one down there was you'd come out of there anemic because the mosquitoes would eat you alive, and you'd climb up the hill weak and everything because you lost. It was horrible. So Roy come here and he said, "Well, build a shop right outside your door. You got property here, build it." So I built it, and I just didn't build it big enough because Roy came in here when I was building it and he said, "This place is going to shrink real fast." I said, "Shrink? It's concrete. It can't shrink." He said, "No, no, no. You don't have the room. You're going to have stuff in here." Well, I thought, no, this is plenty big. Well, he's right. It shrank real fast, and a lot of times I got a lot of friends, and I'm thankful for that. You got to be a friend to have friends. That's the way it works.
Absolutely.
And but they'll come in my shop and they want to. "Hey Tom, could you help me build this? Hey Tom, can you help me do this?" Well, then they leave their projects in my shop. Now I feel bad about getting rid of their projects, if you know what. Yeah. So I'll go, "Well, that ain't mine. That's theirs. This one here's theirs." That it shrinks because of that. So we've already thought about putting another wing up, but We ain't done it yet.
That'll be the friend zone right
Right,
there.
right. Well, another thing, it. I guess we're all kind of like them hoarders, kind of, because you could look through your scrap pile and go, I remember how I dicked that one up. That I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to throw that away. It's a piece of you, It's kind of like all you horseshoers got them big loaves of horseshoes,
I'm guilty of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
and I ain't getting rid of them.
Never.
But I know what you mean. But my shop is the same way. We try to clean it now and again, and then I go, well, I made that ring to show a guy how to weld a ring. I might use that one day on a project. Well, I got 7 rings. What are you gonna do? All right,
Uh,
and I don't. I'm a coal guy because when I grew up, it was coal. We didn't have Coke, and
Okay.
then they started getting the Coke thing going. But I love coal, but it's harder to teach people how to run coal because they don't get the part about. All right, it's coal, green coal here. Then it's got to go over here to coke up, and then that's when the BTUs come out of it. They don't get that part because when you're doing coke, you can just throw it on and you're coking. But
mhm.
there's something about working a coal fire that I just kind of enjoy. It's kind of laid back, if you know what I'm saying, and you try to keep your fire together, and I don't like propane much for nothing. But
Yeah, I'm not.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's useful in some applications. Some things you go, oh man, I got that. I could put that in that. But I use it for different things, but I don't like to use it. I really.
Just another tool for the toolbox.
Right, right. It's there for if you need it. And I always call them fire breathing dragons because you burn all the hair off your hands when you're running.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't care. So I've made tongs this long, three, so you can grab it, and not burn yourself off the foam. Then you want
Oh,
to
Another.
dig in,
exactly.
and then you're trying to be tough, and there's doors around, and you're trying to get that piece, and you're burning bad, ain't you? You are
Oh yeah.
not good, are you? No, you grab a hold of that, and your hands already blistered up. Yeah. Is it still working?
Yes,
Yep,
sir.
we got
All
you.
right, brother. I'm gonna have to get my wife come home from church, and she's supposed to fry me some chicken.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Well,
Hey, we appreciate it very much, Tom, and thank you for everything you've done for our trade and bringing so much art to life. You're a brain that I enjoy very
well, I
much.
enjoy you guys, both of you guys. You guys, and I'm glad to see you guys know how to run them computers because I have, who?
We're learning.
Let me think. You know Mike Edwards, right? The guy.
Yep.
I love him. Mike Edwards, great horseshoer, spur maker, belt buckle maker. We were talking about computers one time, and he goes, Tom, I don't know about you, but if I'm on that computer and it says download, he says, I run to the kitchen. I'm the same way. I go, I don't want to download that. What is it? In our minds don't work like they say, well, you got to do this, push that to go to here, to go to there. Well, my mind don't work like that. I want to turn it on, turn it off. I want to be there when I push the button. That, that's why I was afraid to do this. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to do it, but I did it. And
You did great.
then when they ask for a password, well, then you go, well, I got 17 passwords.
I know.
It's anxiety. I don't need that.
Uh-huh.
All right, boys. Have a great day, and thank you for asking me to be on it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
All right,
Tom.
Tom.
how do we get out of it?
You just
You'll
push
just hit
leave.
the leave button and
All
that's
right,
it.
then. See ya.
See you, Tom.
Leave button. See, you can't find it now. There ain't no leave button.
The red one.
Oh, I got it. Leave studio. See, to me,
Yep.
Yes,
that's
sir.
not a studio. I'm in a shop. Have a great day. See ya.
See you, Tom. Man, that is great. Tom has some like incredible stories, and he can just go on
That was
for
so
hours.
good, dude. That was so good. We could have Tom on again.
Oh yeah, I would.
Dude.
It would be awesome to have him and Roy together.
That's what I was just dude. They're both always at the winter clinic.
I was just thinking.
Dude, them in person would be so fucking funny, dude.
Yeah, I hope
So funny.
Hope we could do that in the
Well,
future.
it'd be smart. Like if we try to get Roy to do this before then.
Singular. Yep.
Yeah, so then they both like everybody's introduced to Roy and Tom,
Yeah, that'd be great.
and then we could have them together just going off on things, dude. It would be so freaking good.
Well, I guess we're just gonna have to try to get old Royden on here. And,
Yeah, I'll send Roy a message and try to get him on here. That would be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode with Tom Willoughby. You could leave us a review and let us know what you think. And if you have any questions, you can go to our Instagram page, Forge Your Brains Podcast, and leave us a message or a comment. Or you can also go to the YouTube channel, Forge and Brains Podcast, and leave us a comment there. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.